Okay.
Dun, 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 dun. What's going on, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of the Unfiltered crew? It is I, Christopher Rausch, and Mr. Scott Goyette back here with another episode of the Unfiltered Experience.
There's a lot of pieces to this puzzle, which brings us to introduce our guest today. So I went and looked around and tried to find the best person for this. Is it a flight attendant? Is it somebody who works in behind the scenes at an airline? And I found a good friend who's a pilot for one of the major American airlines, and he works diligently making sure you get from point A to point B. And it's not always the scenario that he wants either. He can get stuck somewhere. He can't see his family. We're all suffering from it. So let's, without further ado, welcome my good friend, Chuck Mahn.
What's up, Chuck? Welcome to the Unfiltered Experience, brother.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
We appreciate you being here, considering the fact that what Scott and I just talked about. We're going to be in the air. My wife's in Florida right now, flying back. And I heard over the Memorial weekend that I think over 2,000 flights were canceled.
Yeah.
It's mind-blowing.
Unprecedented. It's honestly the most unreliable, I would say, the aviation industry has been since I've been in it. You know, my dad was a commercial pilot, taught me how to fly. He worked at an airline starting in '87. So, you know, we've seen some ups and downs. We saw some weird times after 9/11. But by far, the last 2 years, weirdest, most frustrating from a traveler's perspective 2 years I've ever seen. Unprecedented. Absolutely.
How long have you been flying? What got you into being a pilot?
Yeah, like I said, my dad did it. He was a flight instructor. He owned a little airplane. He taught me how to fly. We spent time at the airport. I mean, that was my childhood. A lot of kids grew up in the baseball field or on the basketball court, and I love sports, but I grew up at airports. You know, my dad had a little airplane and would hang out with his friends, and I would jump in all their planes and pretend to fly World War II bombing missions. And I'd spend 12 hours a day just in Amesbury, Massachusetts, right down the street from where I met Scott. This little grass runway where my dad kept his plane. I loved it. I fell in love with it from 3. My dad was teaching me how to fly hardcore, probably from 10 on. By about 15, I could do everything myself. Soloed, flew by myself on my 16th birthday, got my license on my 17th birthday. Got my first flying job at 18, first airline at 23, and blessed. Very blessed. Not everyone.
And now you're doing that with your kids. You got your kids in the plane with you. Yeah, it's awesome.
I sent you guys a picture. I have 4, and the first 3 pretty indifferent. They like it. They like the A to B. They like flying for free. They like travel. Not so much interested in flying. My 4-year-old loves it. He can't get enough. He wants to go fly. So
that's awesome.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
I love it.
So that's the fun part. You know, we've all been in a plane, or most of us been in a plane at some point. I've been blessed to take a few flying lessons myself, and I started getting involved too, because I, like you, it's fun to be up there controlling. It's fun. The only difference I'm one of these people, and you know this about me, Chuck, is I'll go into something so like full throttle, and then I'll just go crazy with it. That I was sitting there in the middle of it going, do we really need to be trying to buy airplanes and taking on one more thing? And so after my second flight lesson, I just said, listen, I'm going to fly commercial. I've got some friends who have planes. I'll just fly with them. And it was weird for me to back off of that because I love that side of it. Let's talk about the other side of it. So the fun part is you're flying, you're doing all the stuff that you love. There's a lot of flight attendants out there who have made a decision to not make a ton of money, but have the ability to see the world and see new perspectives. But right now, everybody is taking some heat. The pilot did this wrong. The flight attendant did this wrong. Especially people up in first class or business class and international are just chirping away and just bitching about everything. And listen, the food in Polaris for United, which I know is competition to you, but for the food in Polaris, I'm blown away that they can serve that to, in these flights when somebody's paying 10 grand for a flight. Yeah. So there's a lot of things to complain about. Seats broken, no internet, not showing up on time, canceling a flight 2 minutes before.
Lost luggage.
Where do you start? What can you start to tell everybody here from a pilot's perspective? Like, what are you seeing and what do we need to look at? Because it's stressful for all of us.
It's so stressful. It's a lot to unpack and where to even start. we all are professionals, and we take this professionalism and we try to, to deliver the best product we can. But as a pilot, flight attendant, we're the frontline workers, right? We're showing up when we're supposed to show up, and we're doing the job the best we can. Unfortunately, the staffing shortages coming out of COVID have crippled the entire industry. I mean, my company has canceled hundreds of flights a day in perpetuity. And it's not just pilots, right? I do want to get back to what you said about, you dive headfirst into everything you do, Scott. I've seen that a million times, right? And to see you back off, right, you kind of intimated that the cost, right? The cost would get crazy. Well, no one's becoming a pilot now. It's very cost prohibitive upfront with no guarantee that you're going to be a major airline pilot, right? It's a pretty big risk, $80,000 to $100,000 to go from not having a pilot's license to being eligible to go work at an airline with absolutely no guarantee that an airline's going to hire you. And people look at that cost benefit right now, and not a lot of people are making that leap to dive in and go be a pilot. So major pilot shortage is a humongous factor, right? All the baby boomers born in the 40s and 60s, the FAA has a mandatory retirement age of 65. They're all hitting 65 right now. I think Delta is retiring 500 pilots a month.
Whoa.
Wow.
When you look at an airline like JetBlue has 5,000 pilots, right? Imagine that's 10% of their workforce is retiring a month. Now, JetBlue doesn't have that many retirements, but United's right up there. United's 300 pilots a month as these boomers retire. The FAA is bouncing around the idea of extending the mandatory retirement age from 65 to 67 as a stopgap, as a finger in the dike. But
Sure,
it's a supply and demand issue. There's not enough young new pilots entering the workforce.
How do you see that shifting? How do you see that shifting?
Well, I mean, airlines have gotten so creative. Most of the major airlines now have an ab initio program, which has been happening in Europe forever. Like an airline like Lufthansa is taking forever. For as long as I can remember, Lufthansa is grooming pilots from no time through their own flight schools and putting them in the right seat of their jets at 500 hours of experience. The American carriers, you have to have 1,500 hours to be a pilot at a major airline. But all of the major airlines are starting this new program. I know. I don't know what United calls theirs, but they're taking zero-time pilots, putting them through their training program. They become an instructor for X amount of time. They fly at a regional airline, and boom, they're at United within 3 to 5 years for $80,000 to $100,000 initial investment. A lot of the airlines are doing that, but it's a stopgap. It's not going to fill the incredible demand. I mean, people came out of COVID and said, we are traveling. 2 years of telling people you can't go places has created this pent up demand that all the airlines were hoping for, and it's blown expectations out of the water. People are traveling. It is busy. I was in Vienna 2 weeks ago. I flew to Bratislava, took the train to Vienna, flew home from Vienna packed. I took Turkish Air through Vienna to Istanbul and into Boston packed, 100% business class and economy packed. The Turkish airport, Istanbul airport was jammed. People are back and flying. But the pilot shortage is the tip of the iceberg, right? Think of the infrastructure required to get you to the Maldives. Right? You need, hundreds of people working in the baggage department. You need, 50 to 100 people working the gate, the ticket agent position. TSA is shorthanded, right? I mean, we're seeing a record number of waiting times in TSA. I think
Austin's
Orlando,
been insane.
Orlando's the worst. Orlando's
sure.
hours. I think airlines in Orlando this travel season in the spring, we're asking customers to arrive 3 hours before their scheduled flying time to get.
Chuck, I don't know if you saw, because we had this 1 or 2 days, and it wasn't like expected times. It wasn't even like the day after a festival. It was just a random business day. Everyone was dropping off their rental cars, and they were leaving them on the street coming in. So the whole airport is shut down. They had to go get the cars and get them in. It's go Google it. It was insane.
Yeah.
And I go into this airport, if that happened when I was trying to come in, I don't even know what I would do, because I'm like, I got to get to this flight. I'm never flying by accident. I'm going somewhere. So
it's wild. And I mean, rental cars, we could just go down the line, right? I mean, rental cars, the big rental car companies were doing no business for a year and a half, for 18 months. So what they do? They sold off their inventory, and now they have no inventory. Go look at rental car prices. It's banana land. I mean, you used to be able to pick up a car for $20 a day. You absolutely cannot. You can't touch anything for under 60, 75 bucks a day. So the entire infrastructure of travel is taxed, and I mean, it is what it is. It's a tough time right now, but it's happening, and we're getting it done. People are getting it done, and you know, I think we just need to change our expectations a little bit, right? This isn't 5 years ago where everything went like clockwork. You know, this is unprecedented. We're coming out of 2 unprecedented years, and we're figuring it out. Certainly getting better. Certainly getting better. You know, airlines do not like the bad PR, and all the airlines across the board have scaled back their flying. They're like, we've got to get this. We got to get this under control, which isn't necessarily great for the traveler. Your experience should be a little bit better, but unfortunately, you're going to pay a lot more than you were paying before, because you know the volume is down, capacity is up, supply and demand. It is expensive to go fly right now.
Wow. And so, Chuck, when you're talking about that, the first thing that pops into my mind, if there's scarcity in resources, does that equate to scarcity in safety and security?
Great question.
Fantastic question. Fantastic question.
Top of mind.
And you know, there is a pressure.
I don't know if I want to know the answer. That's the other part of it. I'm like,
yeah,
fly in 15 days. I'm like,
yeah, there's a pressure for sure.
Yeah.
But as professionals, you know, we have to, as a pilot, as me personally, I can't speak for everybody, but I can definitely speak for the people I'm friends with, the people I work with. Safety is unwavering. And I will give my company credit, and I will have to say that almost every airline has to run this way, that if we use the safety word, then it's okay. You know, we're going to have a reset here. And the industry has come so far in the last 10 years, you know, since I was at a different airline 10 years ago. But just watching this progression over the last 10 years, there's a lot less liability on the pilot if the pilot says, I'm going to stop now, and because I'm feeling a little unsafe. Good. And we have, I would say, absolutely unprecedented power right now to take a safety timeout, to stop. And especially right now, the schedule's maxed out. Our pilots are flying to their FAA limits daily, weekly, monthly, annually. You know, it's all hands on deck, and companies are incentivizing pilots to work more by paying them more. And so we're all working more than we're accustomed to, but airlines can't afford an accident, and they realize that. You know, cancellations are expensive, delays are expensive. They're a scratch of the surface to an accident or an incident, and they understand that, and we have programs in place that protect us if maybe we make a mistake. We can self-disclose that mistake, and it keeps us free from retribution by self-disclosing. There's an ASAP program. I wish I knew the acronym for it, but it's basically we self-disclose, hey, I made a mistake on that trip, you know, and the FAA realized 20 years ago that, you know, we need a new way, because we all lied, right? We all made a mistake. Don't tell anybody, you know, bullshit, you know.
Flew back on 2 engines. We
fucked that up, you know. And the FAA realized, this isn't really the best way to see the mistakes we're making. So they give us this ASAP program that lets us self-disclose mistakes we've made and holds us harmless as long as it wasn't something egregious or intentional. But the airlines understand safety is paramount. You know, it's hard to come back from an egregious accident. And I would say especially the carriers in the United States, amazing. This is the safest time to fly that I've ever been a commercial pilot, and it's not even close. I mean, it's light years. Our programs, our training program, I have to go back to train every year. And the module for that training section, it isn't completed until about 6 months before I go, because they want to give me real-time scenarios. That Air France accident coming out of South America, that Airbus that crashed. It was kind of an unprecedented incident, right? They got some ice on the pitot tubes. The pilots were getting some bad information. They were up at altitude and stalled the airplane. And every stall I've ever done in training in a jet is down at 10,000 feet, where you have tons of power, and you just throw the power up and you power right out of it. There's no extra power when you're up at 34,000 feet. The engines are running at peak efficiency. They don't have a little extras. So the last time I went through training right after that accident, we went and did high altitude stalls, and it was eye-opening, and it was real, and it was something that had happened, and it prepared us. And by far the safest time I've ever been an airline pilot, without a doubt.
So Chuck, here's a question for you, and it's kind of a loaded question, but do you think that this actually is a good thing that's happening? Because Chris and I are always talking on our show about the fact that COVID is creating an awakening for all of us. Like all the things that we're not receiving, or we're being more grateful, we're waking up to that. Hey, we're in control of things. We need to rely on everybody else. We need to bring ourselves to max capacity to be part of the world. One of the things that I'm actually in a group for 1K and global service members with United, because I love to see what's really going on here. And one of the things that I heard somebody complaining about, and I just thought it was ridiculous, and it shows that they do lack empathy, is they were saying, I was waiting for 2 hours in Newark and I couldn't get to the gate. We were already there and I missed my appointment and I'm livid. And then the question was asked was why? And they said there's thunder and lightning. And they said, well, those gates are automated. They should be fine. That's bullshit, because somebody has to put, the under the tire, put the stopper. Somebody has to get that. There's people who cannot be walking around out on the tarmac when there's lightning coming down.
Right.
So the ignorance, the inability to be empathetic, and it's me. There's a lot of opportunity for awakening because of this problem. So Chris mentioned it to start, the problem is solution. One of the things I want to start talking about with you is we have a perceived problem. What can we do to be part of the solution? Like telling that person, hey, there's more to it. As we awaken together, maybe this travel issue becomes the thing that's bigger than 9/11, because after 9/11, we all come together. But now, what about not just come together, but come together with action and actual sustainable change to build a better world together, which means some of these things have to fall apart. So I love the fact that you're saying, even though there's less people, even though there might be somebody with only 500 hours instead of 1,500 hours, there's this ASAP, there's this. I'm not just going, oh shit, no one knows if I do that, I'll just sign off on that. You're being more intentional. So even though we're saying, okay, well, then it was safe because we had more hours, now we're intentional with those hours. So let's talk about that. What is it that's going on right now that we can see a positive in?
I love that question. And I love it. Part of our problem is we've gotten so good, right? Like airline travel has been so good that people book this flight and they get there and they land within a few minutes of when they were supposed to land. They walk to the rental car counter, the car's ready, they grab their key. They woke up in New Hampshire. They are driving their car in Orlando to the park 4.5 hours later, and it's gotten so good that it's like, that is the expectation. And it's almost like we've lost sight of, you're going to this hub where out of Boston, we have 1,000 flights a day. Okay. So it's 1,000 flights a day. We're handling hundreds of thousands of people. TSA is handling over 1 million people a day. You're flying at 600 miles an hour at 36,000 feet. You're going 1,200 miles in 2.5 hours. You're going down. You're migrating into this process with thousands of other people, and we've done it so seamlessly for so long. There was certainly a bit of taking for granted how spectacular it is we're doing. What we're doing. And I was driving home from the golf course thinking about talking to you guys, and I was imagining the Wright brothers 120 years ago, right? With a kite on the beach in North Carolina. And I really wish we could hammer down time travel. I wish I could have 10 minutes with him. I wish I could take him in the cockpit of my Airbus for 10 minutes and say, hey guys, we're going to take off in Boston. We're going to land in Orlando in 2.5 hours. We're going to go 80% the speed of sound. We're going to get some lunch. Would you like something to drink? Grab a seat in your reclining chair here. Don't worry. We have all the weather. I have high-speed Wi-Fi on my iPad. I know where the weather is. We're going to go around some thunderstorms around Georgia. 120 years ago, we didn't have airplanes. And now we're going around the world with this consistency and this comfort. High-speed internet, TV. We're connected. We've taken for granted how hard how difficult the process can be, right? And some weather. I had I was going, it doesn't matter where I was going. I think I was going into one of the New York airports in Florida, and this kid's on the phone, and he's like, "Hey, my mom said it's not raining in New York anymore. Why haven't we left?" And it was an opportunity, right? Naturally, my Irish side was like, "Hey, go fuck yourself," But I was like, "Yeah, you know what? I have an opportunity here. I have an educational opportunity." And I said, "Yeah, I have it right here. I have this thing that my company has given me. I have real-time weather. So we're flying into New York today, and at our arrival time, there were 160 other flights that were scheduled to arrive at the exact same minute we were, right? They're coming from Jacksonville, and they're coming from Georgia, and they're coming from the West Coast. And so for an hour in New York, no flights could land. All right. So now there's this backlog of 400 flights. Well, the airport can still only receive, and I'm making these numbers up just to make it easy. But the airport can only receive 150 flights an hour, right? So now we have this backlog of 400 flights. So the FAA gave us all a time where we can depart to fill us all in. And so I explained this all to him, and he's like, "Oh, yeah, but my mom said it's not raining there anymore." Like, okay, I tried to educate you. I did my best, but these things happen. And when you think of like an airport like New York, Atlanta, Orlando, LA, the flights are all orchestrated. Every airline has a slot time. You don't just get to say, "Oh, I'm going to LA tomorrow," right? You have to get the slot from the airline or from the airport authority. And all these slots are doled out so that, there's a steady flow of traffic. And when there's a hiccup, when there's weather, when a plane breaks down on a runway, when any kind of possible delay happens, it ripples. And, for airlines that have headquarters in New York or in Florida or, Delta in Atlanta in the summer when the weather rolls through there. I mean, when you think of the crippling ripple effect of a delay in Atlanta, it's amazing Delta can operate through the summer, but they do. But people aren't aware of that. They don't understand why, I'm in Orlando, I'm going to Boston. Why is my flight delayed? Because there was a storm in Atlanta. Like, well, your plane was going into Atlanta, then to Orlando. The planes never stop. I mean, my airline is built on efficiency. Our airplanes never stop. Our airplanes have a 2-hour maximum break in a 6-day window. The airplane never stops for more than 2 hours. So, very, very long way to explain that. We've gotten really accustomed to it being fantastic. We've really done a fantastic job for a long time, and it's been efficient, and people are really struggling with, well, why isn't it working now? Or why is this happening to me? And,
yeah. Wait, the other thing I want to ask you, and kind of like we were talking about that, about delays and whatnot, the last 2 times I've flown, and I just recently heard this from a friend of mine, they wanted to know why the flights are always overbooked when we're experiencing a shortage of staff. So like every time, like I was literally, when I was in Detroit last year, and I thought they were making this up. They said anybody who's willing to delay their flight will get, I think it was like $1,500.
Yeah.
We'll give you a hotel room. I was like, $1,500. I want to go home too bad. But they were like doing that. Why are they still overselling the flights if there's such a demand shortage?
Yeah. I don't know. Honestly, I work for an airline that doesn't oversell its flights.
Okay.
So that's one of our founding principles. But there's also in general, a 5% no-show on any given flight on any given day. So
Really?
the airlines are rolling the dice, and if those 5% show up, then man, it creates a snag. I don't know. I wonder going forward if they're going to continue to oversell like they are because of the reduction in schedule, and it's so much harder now to reaccommodate people because like I said, every airline has reduced their schedule, so the frequency is just not there. My airline used to do Boston to DC 12 times a day. I think we're doing 6 now. So if you leave someone who's trying to get to DC, it's much harder to reaccommodate them. I don't know. I don't know. I wish I had a good answer. The airlines, I'm just a pilot. The people that run the airline, they run the numbers. And they say occasionally if we have to pay someone $1,500, the 8 out of 10 times where we filled every seat and didn't leave anybody behind, it's worth it to pay someone $1,500 once or twice a day. They've run the economics and it works. So I don't know.
Nice.
Well, that's literally what it comes down to is data. I mean, somebody's like crunching numbers. I mean, above and beyond all of this, one of the things, just to go slightly off topic, but one of the reasons HEB, which is the best grocery store here in Texas,
Hands down.
does so well. They do, and you've been here when you were, of course, in Canada. The reason they do so well, and I don't know if you know this, is they hire all of their management trainees from the Ivy League schools, from Wharton, Harvard, wherever, and they bring them through a training program for 2 years that you have to work on level with everybody else. So you'll be a bagger, you'll be a assistant chair.
I had no idea.
So they do that, and the reason they do that is they create this massive efficiency of understanding what people are going through, and then what they do is they literally crunch numbers. It's all data. This person wants this. So I'm sure that what's happening with the major airlines is you've got somebody in there saying there will be somebody who is willing to do this. The numbers say this. I mean, it's definitely it's not killing us from a customer service perspective. And you know this as well as I do, Chuck. Even if somebody's a little bit upset, our airlines are subsidized by the government. So somebody like Emirates can't come in, Singapore Air can't come in, Thai Airways can't come in, who has exceptional service, because they wouldn't be able to compete with the what they're paying. And another thing that you know too that other people don't know is, you know, when you go fly Thai Airways and you say how amazing it is, that's also massively government subsidized, and they're losing money to create tourism in Thailand. So when you are on that plane saying, why can't we have food like this? It's being sponsored by the government so that you go there to enjoy Thailand.
Yeah.
So there's things that people don't see and they want to comment on and they don't fully understand.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a frustrating time. You know, I've always been proud to be a pilot, but it's certainly, and my airline in particular, it has been a badge of honor for me since I've been there.
Yeah. In
9 years. But in the last 6 months, a year, I've gotten more text messages. Man, I'm in Cancun. What are you guys doing? You know, like, it's tough. It's tough. And you know, I think all the airlines could improve maybe a communication, right? Like,
yes,
and that's been a tenet of my airline from the day I was trained. They wanted to be more transparent than all the other airlines were. And sometimes I don't like it, right? Like, you know, let's say I get called out on reserve. I have to be at the airport 2.5 hours. And, you know, that for whatever reason, I'm the pilot for this flight that's now running late. Well, our gate agents will make an announcement. They say, well, we're waiting on our pilot who's coming in. He was called out. You know, so I walk up to the gate and it's like, oh, he's here. And it's embarrassing. I find it completely embarrassing that everyone knows they're waiting on me. And now I finally arrived. And, you know, I don't want the attention. I just want to go do my job. So sometimes the transparency can be a little embarrassing, but that's been a pillar of this airline, and in a way that a lot of the other airlines come up short, right? You don't know what's going on. I feel like we can all handle a delay better if we have an understanding of what's going on. You know, why is this thing late? Why am I here 2 hours? Why is it departure time and I haven't heard a thing? And that's I find that frustrating. I travel in the back a lot as a regular customer too, and I'm like, what's going on? Like, there's no plane here. It's not on time. This flight's clearly not on time. Why? What's going on? I think we'd all be better at communication.
So that's a really good point, and that's another one of those that crosses from transportation to real life. I mean, think of where 90% of our issues right now as a world, you know, whether it's in our own relationships, communicating with a spouse, with our children, with supervisors, with subordinates, with friends, with family, we're failing, and then we create a divisiveness. So if that's the case, which I agree with you, what are some of the things that you would suggest to the airline or to fellow pilots or to fellow flight attendants that they can start doing to communicate better? Because I'll share one little story that I thought was beautiful communication. And this was actually pre-COVID, but a guy came in, I was sitting in the right side of first class, and right in that first seat was 1B or whatever it is. Someone walked in and the guy sits down and he's going, this is the third time like that I didn't get a flight. If this one doesn't like, and he's yelling at the lady and she goes like this, you're waiting for like the confrontation. She goes, I can only imagine what you're going through today. I know you need to be somewhere. I'm going to do everything I can do to be here for you. I just really want to see your day go better. And
wow.
and the way she said it,
wow.
The way she said it, I was like, because you know what you want to say and then your mouth opens. Like that sounded beautiful, but when somebody comes in just bitching in your face, and he literally just said, thank you. And he goes, I'm sorry. He goes, He goes, I'm sorry. And I just watched the whole thing diffuse. And I feel like everyone, like, it was on their, like, phones, pretending like they weren't listening, going, that was some amazing shit. We were all probably like putting it into like social media going, you should have seen what I just saw. But
I hope someone noticed it. I hope so.
Oh, I noticed it, and I know everybody felt it. I know and I definitely commented on it. It was somewhere. I sent something out. But so to my point, what are some of the action steps that we could take in doing things like that? Or how can we communicate better to start the ripple effect to make the healing happen, both in transportation and all of the life?
It's a great point. And it's, it's this classic thing of the passengers have been frustrated and they're beating up on the flight attendants. So naturally, the flight attendants are frazzled, right? And maybe they've had enough, and maybe they're sick of it, and maybe they're, I always give this example of, how do I put this? The people beating up on the flight attendants on the flight from Boston to Orlando, right? That flight ran late. So those people beat up on the flight attendants all the way to Orlando.
In what way? Like beat up? Like just verbally abusive or
yelling at, complaining to the flight attendant, your airline sucks. This is the third time I've flown this week. I'm delayed. This is, my seat sucked. The Wi-Fi sucked on the last plane, and you suck, and your airline sucks. And, the flight attendant sort of absorbs that and then gets to Orlando, and then the family gets on to Orlando, who just went to Disney and they're having a great time. And now the flight attendant's kind of standoffish, right? Like she's just been beat up for 3 hours, and naturally she's sort of lost her hope, or she's been demoralized, she's been crushed, and she didn't have that fighting spirit anymore. And now the family's like, man, our flight attendant's kind of in a bad mood, and how do you stop that cycle? How do you separate it, right? Like, man, that person beat me up, but I got to keep my spirit up. I got to keep going. And I see it with flight attendants, the interaction that maybe flight attendants have with pilots, right? We have a very small number of pilots who can be, I don't know how to put it. I need to put it delicately, but don't treat the flight attendants the best, right? They treat them like the help, and they don't treat them like we're on a team here. And then I come down and I get this standoffishness, and, I have to understand that, maybe he just flew a 6-hour flight with a guy that was kind of beating him up, and I try to go out of my way. Hey guys, I'm going to run to Starbucks. What do you guys want? Something as simple as that. And I look at my flight attendant's eye and they go, really? Really? You're going to go, you don't mind? I'm like, yeah, I don't mind. And you can just see it's like a puppy that's been abused for the last 6 hours. It's a cycle, and it's like anything else. It's a microcosm of any other industry, right? You see the cashier at the grocery store. Mm-hmm. They're getting bitched at because milk's $8 a gallon. It's not her fucking fault. She's making $14 a fucking hour. She's going to school. She's got a kid. She's doing the best she can. Yeah. It's not her fault milk's $8 a gallon. But you see the guy in front of you who's bitching at her because, oh my God, look at his goddamn bill, $114. It's not her fault.
I'm the guy in line that'll say something to that guy and also make that cash register make her day smile, because
you are. And that's why you guys do what you do. But
I'll grab the guy, give him a hug, and then give her a hug, because it throws people really off. They're like, what just happened?
So you guys are nice. I'm the guy I'll throw $20 and I'll say, here's 20. Shut the fuck up and get the fuck out of here.
I like Chuck. Chuck's our people. Chuck's our people. But to your point, Chuck, here's a question I have. And this is what I was thinking about. The last couple of times I've flown, I've actually thought about the unruly passenger. We've seen the reports of people being duct taped. You saw Mike Tyson punch the shit out of the guy, which I thought he deserved. We're seeing that. What is your recommendation? Well, actually, first of all, do you have a story of an unruly passenger that you had to deal with? But also, what recommendation do you have for us passengers if we see that happening? Because I see the stewardesses, the flight attendants, they're not capable like me and you, all us guys. Is it incumbent upon us to try to help the flight attendants to calm that passenger down, or should we stay in our spot? I mean, what are some of your thoughts on that? And have you had any experiences with that? Because I've heard some amazing things that just are mind blowing.
It's a great question. Every year I go through training, we get flexible handcuffs. We get them reissued to us from our security guy. And he said in the last 2 years, he's had to reissue more flexible handcuffs. But he said, he's seen more instances of crew members traveling in the back they've grabbed their flexible cuffs or have had to become additional crew members on flights that they were just passengers on because of the unruliness. I feel like it's like anything else, like I find it disappointing when a fellow human is in need and people react by pulling out a phone and like, oh, this is going to get clicks. I'm going to record this, and I know we're all different, but my instinct is if someone obviously needs some help, the phone is the last thing I'm thinking about. I'm going to go help this person. I've had to step up and help when I was in the cabin. A woman actually, I was in the second or third row, and this woman in the front row got up and tried to open the door at altitude. And I jumped up and, I don't know what I was going to do, but I was like, this isn't good, and it turns out she was going through something. I don't know what was going on with her. She was, she had just kind of lost her mind for a second. I don't know. It was like a bad reaction or something. It wasn't anything nefarious or intentional, but I think as humans, we need a lot more of stepping up to help. And I don't think we have to be necessarily ready to go fight about it. But let's go help a flight attendant, who's maybe there's a big guy who's got a problem, and maybe we can talk to him and diffuse it a little bit. But absolutely, flight attendants have this acronym ABP, able-bodied person, and so they size up everyone that gets on the airplane, and they make a mental note of, that's a big tough-looking guy. If I need his help, I'm gonna know where he's sitting. It's cool. You can ask a flight attendant, you notice any ABPs? And she's like, yeah, 5A is an ABP, 12D is an ABP. There's people that can maybe help us if something happens. But yeah, I think it's up to us. I think it's up to the community. The flight attendants are frazzled and they're getting worked hard and overworked. And I think they'd love to see an ally on a flight, to step up and defend them when something's right. Don't get on a plane looking for a fight, but by all means, if someone's being absolutely over the top or I don't know. If there's a situation where I could help, I will 100%, I'm going to get up and help. And, I think that's just a human thing. I don't think it's a pilot thing or a seasoned traveler thing. And I don't think it's just an airplane. It's just, I think we need a lot more of that, a lot more of stepping up for what's right and helping someone who may need some help. And
amen.
I think it's gotten a lot better. I really do. The last 6 months have been a lot better than the previous 18 before that. It was, we've really seen things level off when it comes to the unruly behavior.
Good.
Yeah. I hope we're getting better.
And another beautiful thing, and just what you said, is just showing the fragility of humanity, because whether it's the person who's being ridiculous or whether intentionally or unintentionally going toward the door to open it. I mean, I've had moments of panic attacks or whatever. I can only imagine if there was a space where, just the world felt like it was closing in. And Chris, you talked about this when you were sleeping, in your camper, and you said you had that kind of impending doom feeling.
Oh, yeah.
Could you imagine that you're sitting in the plane, you have impending doom, and you have to get out of the plane because the plane's the problem, which is very possible.
Yeah.
You're feeling claustrophobic, something kicks in, some old phobia, some PTSD. That is not unreasonable, especially since we've compartmentalized so many emotions, because how do we process it? We're sitting at home. We got the kids with us. We got the wife with us. We haven't been able to go out. We got this. And without tools, which you and I share, Chris, to process these emotions, many, if not most Americans or most people worldwide right now are definitely inflated with emotions that are unprocessed. If you're bringing all those people into a tube that's flying through the air, then of course there's going to be problems. So my suggestion is exactly what Chuck was saying, is whatever skill set you bring to the table, bring it. If you're somebody who a last resort is a jiu-jitsu guy, need to drop somebody if you have to. Mine would be, hey guys, she's just doing her best. I know you guys are having a tough day too. What are you guys drinking? I'm going to throw something like that out there and be cool. And they're also looking, going, that's a big guy, not being confrontational. So they're probably going to be like, oh, I'm drinking this. I go, dude, they have Buffalo Trace. If you're not a whiskey guy, get it. So, I mean, it's free, right? Just drink it. And I'm going to make it funny. And I'll
What airline
probably
you fly that is Buffalo Trace? I'd like to ride on them a little bit more. That'd be
so no, United does have Buffalo Trace. So you knew exactly where I was going with that. And how do they serve Bacardi rum? It's like, come on, dude. You can't have Buffalo Trace and then a Bacardi. That's a smack in the face of rum drinkers. So yeah, we don't need to go down that road. But I know every alcohol on every plane. I know which is my go-to because I'm certainly not going to drink some of that swill that you're trying to throw at me. So, but that can diffuse a lot of problems.
Yeah.
Buffalo Trace.
Yeah. No, I agree.
So
some of my problems right now. Yeah.
It's just solved.
Well, speaking of drinking, what about this controversy about pilots showing up to the job site, little teetotaler, and they're stressed out, they're working extra hours, they're doing all those things, they want to go grab a couple of drinks and just kind of calm down. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. Stinks. As a pilot, as a professional, it's a black eye on our industry, on my profession. And I mean, I'm not going to be a hypocrite here. I'm drinking a nice little double IPA, but I don't work till Sunday.
Cheers.
There's pretty strict rules about when we can drink and when we can't drink. I think most airlines are a standard 8 hours to 12 hours before duty. You got to stop drinking. And I will say, at least at my company, if there's any question, if you wake up, let's say in the morning, and maybe you overdid it, it got away from you, and my question is, my airline is pretty understanding. Even that morning, 2 hours to go before the flight, if I've evaluated myself and I'm not ready to go, it's similar to the ASAP. You may have to answer a few more questions, but if you're honest, if you're honest with your boss and say, hey, you know what, the night got away from me and I couldn't go that day, there's a lot more respect for you to say, I'm shutting it down. It got away from me. We've all had a night that got away from us, right? Now, when I'm at work, I really try to, I'm constantly driven by my watch. I'm constantly aware of when I have to be awake, when I have to be on the van to the airport, what time my flight is leaving. And I mean, this is a fantastic career. I'm not doing anything to jeopardize this career, right? This career I have is putting my 4 kids through college. It's paying for this house I just bought. Unbelievable to think of jeopardizing it for a night out of fun. But the airlines are, from what I've seen, and at least from my airline, there's very little retribution if you wake up and you do that evaluation and you realize, it got away from me. I'm not going to work today. I'm going to call in sick. They're going to pay you for the rest of the trip. You're going to go home. You probably will never have to answer another question about it. But if you wake up after a night like that and then you put that uniform on and you go to work, by all means, you deserve to go. You deserve to never fly an airplane again, because I don't want a pilot who can't make a better decision than that. If you woke up feeling like that, like, I'm still going to go put 150 people behind me and try to, no way. We have to be too good at what we do. We're making, I don't want to make it sound like what I do is all that fantastic. It's automated. It's pretty easy. I'm not the sharpest guy in the room, and I do a pretty good job at it. But we have to make a lot of decisions in a short amount of time. We have to take a lot of information and make a decision based on that information very quickly. And anything that numbs or dulls or delays that decision-making process, I want no part of when I go to work. And if you've chosen to make that decision to go do it, then I have no sympathy for you at all. I mean, I know, no, don't get me wrong. Alcoholism runs hand in hand with this type A personality. The type of person that's a pilot is a type A. It goes hand in hand with drinking to excess, and so I am sympathetic. I'm sympathetic if you have a real problem. And, if you show up to work that tanked, you have a problem, and it's too bad you couldn't get the handle on it before you showed up for work. But when you put that uniform on, you showed up to the airplane. You chose to put everyone at risk, and I'm very unsympathetic when it comes to that.
So quick question then. So
Amen.
What would you say is like here's a question. Let's go to you first. How many times have you ever done that? Have you ever done that, or do you want to even?
I would say years ago at a previous airline, I think I had one or two where I was like, after the fact, I was like, that probably wasn't the best choice. That was probably questionable. And I also bought my own breathalyzer just so I can know where I'm at, right? Because we've always heard about BAC, right? But how do you know where you're at? Do you know? Have you ever woken up in the morning and known where you were at? So I bought my own breathalyzer, and it was very eye-opening. There were times where I woke up and I was like, wow, I'm hammered, and I blow in this thing and it's 0-0, right? And there were times where I drank half of what I drank. I had twice the rest, and I blow in that thing and I'm still 0.10. Wow. So many factors that they all talk about: what you ate, how much good sleep you got, did you get some exercise? So it's very eye-opening, and it's interesting. I made some mistakes back then, for sure. In hindsight, and if I was being honest with myself, looking back, I was like, wow, it wasn't worth it. And now that I'm at a major airline, and now that I've been here for 9 years, and I'm making career money, and it's just not worth it. It's easy. I find it to be really easy when I go out to shut it down, to leave, to pull the plug on the partying, because there's too much riding on the line.
So that brings up an amazing question too, because people always look up to those who came before them too. I'm sure, you spoke to somebody like your dad or his friends, or you had an older pilot sitting in the left seat. What can you say? And I know type A people, especially people like us, are probably experiential learners, and going to go, yeah. Is there anything that you can tell the collective of any pilot who listens to this? I mean, aside from the obvious, don't do it, but maybe I like the breathalyzer. I mean, that's a good piece of advice. What else can you tell them? I think getting that sounds amazing, and practicing prior, not that day, having 4 beers at the family barbecue, see where you blow, not eating, like play with it, like learn yourself.
Dude, that's so important. We actually, Barb got me one for Christmas, like a police grade. And what we did is we sat down one time, and guys, radio personalities here in Southern California used to do it. Mark and Brian used to do it. Once a year, they would get drunk on the air, and they would actually they'd have a police officer there, and they would sit there, be drinking. They'd do their blood alcohol level. I'm like, man, I've only had 3 drinks, but I'm a 0.08. I'm a point. So what we did is we sat down, we both started drinking, because I can handle a lot of alcohol. Scott see me, but we sat there and I had 1 drink, blow into it. I'm like, literally, I had like 6 drinks, and I was blowing a 0.13 or something like that, like legally drunk. And I'm like, I could easily go drive to LA right now. Like, I feel totally fine. I mean, I'm totally good. But doing that exercise was eye-opening, because it's like, Chris, you can't fucking do that. No. So I think everybody should do that, just to know where their own levels are at. But yeah, please answer that.
I bought this little Bluetooth one that works with your phone on Amazon, and in hindsight, I've said this a few times, I really should reach out to the company and got royalties, because I think I've gotten 24 pilots to buy one. And I told them, I was like, this thing is wacky. But back to your question, Scott, I think the important part is, people that are in that cycle can be hard to reach, but I think it's, maybe the person that's working with them, right? Like, I think that's the important part, is that we do it as a team. And if, I've flown with guys, and I've had talks with guys like, are you kidding me? That now you put me in a bad position, but what's going on? What's going on with you that you're here right now? And I had a good friend who, great guy, a great pilot, but it just got away from him, and it wasn't always that way. It started slowly, but he was telling me a story of, my wife doesn't like me drinking now, so I hide bottles of vodka in the trunk. And when we were at a party the day, and I'm like, fucking kidding me? Like, you're hiding vodka in where your spare tire should be? And he didn't think he had a problem. It was a very slow progression to that point. And we had a chat, and it was eye-opening. He's like, wow, Chuck's usually there drinking with me, and now here's Chuck looking at me eye to eye saying, Ken, buddy, where are you at right now? And
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's tough, but I think it's important in all of us to see it, right? I mean, it's pretty obvious when you're seeing it, and to be a professional, have that conversation. Like, and I will say, most of the airlines, we have a HIMSS program, another acronym. Aviation's full of acronyms. I'll look it up, but it's for pilots with alcohol or abuse problems. And if you self-identify, you can enter this program, and they'll get you treatment, and it's no indemnification. You keep your job, and there's some strict guidelines going forward. Once you enter the program, you have to run straight and narrow. But Maybe if you see somebody like that, you have that conversation and you say, hey, look, have you looked into the HIMSS program? We might be able to help you, because what's going on with them, right? 99% of the time, someone that's gotten to that point, something's going on. They're hurting in some way, and they need someone to step up and say, hey, what's going on? Let's talk about it, because you're putting this thing at risk. I drive to work loving what I do. I get paid massive amounts of money, and I'm going down 93 in shitty traffic. Like, I can't wait to get there. I can't wait to get to work today. I'm so excited about what today's going to bring. How lucky are we, to blow it over booze is, man, hard to imagine.
And I think we need to take that too to everybody's job. You listen to the passion behind your job. Like, make sure that you find something you're passionate about and don't drink to hide from it. It's, again, like having a drink on a Friday night live show or this show with the Unfiltered experience while we're having a drink while we're talking. Like, the funny thing is, this is probably the one time of the week that I'll have a couple drinks, except for maybe date night. I'll have a glass of wine with my wife. Like, I just do it because we're sitting here. It seems like it's part of this process, and I never get drunk. I have my 2 drinks and I go to bed like I'm that old and boring. But to the point, if you're anesthetizing to avoid things, then that's not the best thing. And so I think, again, Chris, what do you think? What's the final thing we can wrap up with here? Because I'd love to see, your perspective, Chris, and your perspective, Chuck. What's the one thing that we can deliver right now to both a passenger and a citizen of humanity that we can do differently, being more empathetic to those people who we're traveling with, and just worldwide in all respects?
Yeah, it's a great point. And I feel like I've gotten us off the rails here today, but let's bring it all back together. The pilots are working as hard as they've ever worked right now. The flight attendants are by far, I've never seen flight attendants doing longer days, longer weeks, longer months. They're working as hard as they can. They're getting forced to work, right? In general, the pilots' work rules are set by the FAA, set by our contracts. The pilots' work rules can't be messed with. The flight attendants are working on, we're going to try to not work you more than 18 hours. I mean, that's the rules the flight attendants are working on. But the airlines are forcing the flight attendants to work longer shifts. They're forcing them to come in on their days off. They're forcing them to stay at work, right? They're doing a turn and they should be going home, and the company's saying, no, we need you to do this now. We're shorthanded. The workforce isn't there. I mean, pilots aren't there. Flight attendants certainly aren't there. Everyone is working harder than they've worked. The system is getting better, right? We are at unprecedented travel levels, and we're also at unprecedented pilot retirement levels. We're at unprecedented workforce shortage levels, right? I mean, no one's working at Hudson News in the airport anymore. No one's working at Starbucks in the airport anymore. The Starbucks lines are longer than I've ever seen them, right? All of this stuff adds to your frustration. Yeah. You show up at the airport, it took you longer to check in than normal. It took you longer to get through security than normal. You finally get through security, you can't get a fucking coffee now. The Starbucks line's out there. And now you're pressed for time to get to the gate. You get to the gate, they're not boarding as fast as they were. We're pushing off the gate later than we usually do. It's unprecedentedly difficult, but just the simple things, and it's not just the airline industry. It's everything. It's your grocery stores, your restaurants, right? Mm-hmm. The restaurants are absolutely running on the same parallel as airlines, right? Every restaurant I've been to, the service is slower. They're shorthanded. There's signs in the window that they need help, right? I mean, the service industry has never been worse, I don't think, in the entire time I've been alive. Sure. They're doing the best they can. And you know what happens when you get a waitress who apologizes because it took you a little bit longer to get that drink? You say, I know what's going on. It's no problem. And they're like, really? It's the same thing. It's the same thing on an airplane. Your flight attendant's overworked. The person sitting next to you is going through it, right? Maybe their flight got canceled last night. Maybe they spent the night in the airport. It's just a basic humanity, and that's why I was so excited to be here, Scott, when you talked about what can we do, right? It's so simple. We need to get back to that renaissance we had after 9/11, like you alluded to earlier, that everyone's working hard and everyone's stressed and nothing's going the way it used to go. But this is it now. We're not in 2018 anymore. Yeah. We're in 2022, and this is the way things are right now. And the airlines are scheduling as heavy as they can schedule because they're trying to recoup 2 years of losses. It's busy. It's tough.
And pay you guys and keep the economy going. I mean, there's a lot of pieces here. What do you think, Chris?
That's a lot.
I think that's a magnificent question. I think it goes back to what you said. When you said empathy, for me, it's about expectations. Like when you think about like we're going to be traveling, my expectation the last 2 times I've traveled is get there earlier, get through TSA, go to the bar, have a couple of drinks, have a meal. The plane takes off on time. Great. If not, I've got my book. I've got this. If something happens, my expectation now is to go there and understand that everybody's doing their best. And I can always see that people are hustling and everything. It's just having that expectation. Okay, hey, things are going on that are being different, but having that empathy. When I walked onto the plane, when I went to Chicago, on my way back, both ways, is I always talk to the flight attendants like, hey, how's your day going? Hope everybody's been good. Just like you said, just being nice to them. And it was funny because then they came back and they said, oh, can we get you anything to drink, sir? And I said, oh yeah, I'll take a Jack and Pepsi. And I went to get my credit card out. And because I was nice to the guy, he's like, oh no. And I was just like, oh, thank you. I didn't expect that. But, just giving empathy and compassion to everywhere you go. Like when you go through the grocery store line, my intention, I was telling this somebody the other day and they couldn't believe it. So my intention is that I want that cashier to go home and say, this guy in a hat and a bandana came and made me laugh today. He was like the highlight of my day. So if we all take responsibility to go and look at our fellow human being, not as an adversary, not as a competition, not as somebody that's not giving us what we want and what we need and what we expect, to have empathy and forgiveness for them and say, hey, we're all in this together. What can we do to make this a better experience? That's the way I look at it, is, not being so caught up in it's all me. It's like, people are trying to get to weddings and funerals and people are sick in the hospital. I'm going to fucking Italy. I'm going to Chicago for a speaking. For me, I just put it back into perspective and just try to enjoy as much of the process as I possibly can.
Love it.
Awesome. Brought in the aviation expert. Chris summed it up way better than I could in the last 5 minutes. So. The expectation. I love the expectation. We have to reset our expectations, especially in travel. It's not the way it was, and I love that. It's perfect. You have to expect some hiccups. You have to, right? You're going to the Maldives. Don't give yourself an hour connection, right? Those days of
I have big connections, bro. Big connections, and I've plugged in all the opportunity for error. Granted, error could go beyond that space you've created, but I'll be fine.
I'm going to be flying a Twin Otter. One of the first paid jobs I got was flying a Twin Otter. Yes. And they have tons of them in the Maldives. They're on floats. Oh man, it's the coolest airplane ever. Throttles overhead. Oh, awesome.
That's the one that Mark jumped out of, right? When I snuck Mark. Yeah. I took one of my buddies. I said, I just made up something like, oh, we're going to do blank. Like just made up something. Drove him to the airport, put him in the plane, and we dropped him out of the plane because he had never been skydiving. I already been. And my friend was like, don't ever do that to me again. But it was the best day ever. It's like awesome. He was horrified, but somebody throws you out of a plane. That was nice. That's the kind of friend I am, Chris, right there. I throw people out of planes. And
I know. I hung out with you. I won't say what we did, but I was a little distorted for a few hours. Yeah. Well, actually the breathing and the other stuff, but anyways, Chuck, thank you so much for being here. It's been a pleasure having this conversation with you. Thank you for your candidness. Thank you for your openness. Thank you for your honesty, your transparency, and more importantly, the solutions that you shared with us today, because this is going to go out to so many different people. And the fact that it's flying season right now, we're going to share the shit out of this and just make sure that people do have that empathy and compassion. So thank you, brother. Can't wait to meet you in person. And, yes, we're going to put you backstage here and we're going to end the show, but don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Okay. There we have it, Scott. That was a beautiful conversation. Thank you for bringing Chuck to the equation. And, I, for one, now I've had a little anxiety about thinking about the Italy trip and flying to Frankfurt and then from Frankfurt over to Italy and flying back and everything and thinking about my wife coming back from Orlando. But now I just, now that he's really assured us that the safety and the security is of paramount concern, I'm okay with the flight being delayed. I'm okay with them double checking to make sure that, things are working and everything. And really just having empathy and forgiveness for my fellow passengers that might be unruly. They may be trying to get to something that's really devastating for their family or exciting for their family. So I'm going into it with open expectations, but I feel a lot better after having this conversation with him.
Amen, man. And I think one of the biggest things, and back to Chuck's point, is mistakes happen when we're on autopilot. Because on autopilot means we're just looking straight down, looking ahead of us. And so if a variable comes in, we don't see it. But because people are off autopilot, might be working a little extra, they're observing, they're looking at what's going on. So I think safety, it's kind of like, when's the best time to fly a plane? The day after there was a crash. As crazy as that sounds, because no one's on autopilot. Everyone's going, okay, what do we miss? What do we miss? What do we miss? And they're not just going, I'm doing my job, safety check, press the button, start the plane, fly away. Here's your drink. People are in the moment. And so we're always talking about being present. Everything that Chuck just said is about presence. Now, can we take this moment right now where we're short staffed and we're not getting everything that we would like to get, be in this moment, be present, and now can we scale that? Because in the past, that's where we failed. We get all alive and excited post 9/11, and then we get out of the moment again. We go back on autopilot.
Yep.
I want to see people's actions stick, and hopefully this conversation's a way that we can start doing that. Start with travel, start with your own life, start with the leeway we give hospitals, our school system. Everyone's doing their best, and I think that's the message I got from